welcome our speaker, who is Gloria Green. Gloria is the Assistant Vice President, Contracts and Grants at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. She has over 30 years of combined contracting experience with federal, industry, and university environments. Gloria is a certified contract administrator and is an active member of the Society of Research Administrators International. Gloria is the immediate past president of the SRAI Southern Section, and she currently serves on the board of directors as president-elect of the Society of Research Administrators International, several of their committees and working groups. Gloria is an active member of the Council of Government Relations. Some of us know that as COGR, and also the Federal Demonstration Partnership, the FDP. And I'm also proud to say that Gloria is my dear friend, and we have had a lifelong friendship that spans decades now. So I'm going to turn it over to Gloria, and I'm looking forward to hearing her presentation. First time as a supervisor. They'll throw away your shot.
All righty. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to turn off my video. So I may turn off my screen so that we don't have any instability in with the web, because it's cold here and sometimes the internet doesn't want to act right. So let me share my screen here and bring this up. Okay. Then I'm going to swap. Let me do this right quick. Okay, all right. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. All right. So good morning, and thank you all for joining me this morning. I really enjoy presenting, attending. I love Jennifer dearly. I adopted her as my mentor. So we'll get right into it. And then there was a survey that was part of this presentation that I hope you all had an opportunity to complete. It's going to be part of the, we're going to look at those responses during this presentation. So we get started now. So being a first level, if I start glitching, let me know, and then I'm going to, let me just turn off my video. Do it that way. Okay, that's better. All right, I don't want to take any chances. All right, so being a first level supervisor is one of the most difficult, demanding, and challenging jobs in any organization, right? So buried in an organizational web, this person must be knowledgeable, right, at administering a unit and at receiving which among all the daily tasks to delegate downward. So are part of the most important decisions that we have to accomplish as leaders, as supervisors, right? So part of the objectives for this is going to look at, right, understanding your roles and avoiding burnout, how to navigate and work effectively with those you supervise, and how to evaluate technical skills, right? Soft skills are very important, and we're going to get into that a little bit to look at, why I believe soft skills are much more essential than technical skills when you're in these leadership roles. So to get started, we have a poll question. And let's see, I think, okay. Okay, so it looks like roughly, let's see, 60% roughly leaders, 40% are managers. All right, and so one of the things that we're going to place a lot of emphasis on here, or look at to, and I would like, if you have questions about this and stuff, just please, put them in the chat and we can discuss them. But a manager, right, is able to handle tasks and responsibilities and ensure that others get their job, the work done, right? A leader will inspire and motivate their team to achieve their goals. So, okay, great. So 60-40, all righty. Okay, thanks. All right, so let's look at, I'm assuming, I don't know what that means. All right, so, okay. All right, so being a supervisor can be demanding and testing, right? Especially if you're new to it. There are certain skills and qualities that make the job a bit easier. We will also look at how, and this is, I think, one of the most musical I enjoy more than anything is Hamilton, right? Because if you look at, if you're familiar with Hamilton, if you saw the play, if you watched it a million times on Disney Plus, right, you would find out that the theme in Hamilton addresses leadership, and it addresses some of the most critical lessons in leadership. And we're going to take that theme, and that's what I built my presentation on the leadership part of it. So there are several areas that I think leaders should have. And the first one is a very strong communication skills, right? You need to have strong written and verbal communication skills so that employees can clearly understand the tasks that you expect of them. Your organization skills, you will be responsible for ensuring projects are of standard and deadlines are met. So the skill of forward thinking and planning are essential for supervisors. Supervisors, whether you are a manager or a leader, you must be approachable, right? In this position, people would be much more likely to come to you, and you want them to be able to come to you with their problems, and yes, sometimes it can be overwhelming and everything, but if you understand what's going on with your people, then you can understand how to put processes and procedures in place to find quicker solutions and improve the morale. It is, I think, one of the most important aspects of leadership in any role is empathy. You must be able to empathize and place yourself in your employee's shoes, right? If not, you won't understand their point of views and potential difficulties, and you won't be able to manage them effectively. You should always consider the circumstances of your employees. A leader, a manager, you must not appear unconfident and nervous, right? People will assume you don't know what you're doing. Confidence creates a much more productive atmosphere. Furthermore, you need to accept that not every decision you make will work out. When something goes wrong, accept responsibility for it and then make it right. We all must learn to be adaptable, right? Things won't always go to plan. Sometimes we have to actually go back to the drawing board. Sometimes you have to be able to adapt your working styles for when this happens, right? So be flexible, be adaptable in your leadership role. Feedback is very, very important. We want it as leaders. Your employees want it also, right? We all require feedback from time to time to know whether we're on track. So it's really important that you're comfortable offering constructive feedback. You should always justify your feedback and explain your points clearly to the individual in the group. Performance reviews is an excellent tool to provide feedback. If you are only doing this annually, change it, right? Change to either quarterly or semi-annually. The worst thing anyone can do to your staff, the worst thing can be done to you is for someone to point out things that need improvement from a year ago. So feedback is really important. If you're doing performance reviews, then change that method from annually to quarterly or semi-annual. Right? And then when you do the annual review, you are building up, you are following up on what you discussed earlier. But that once a year, it just doesn't cut it. I mean, most of us forget what we've done, last year. Right? When it comes to mistakes we have made or, deficiencies or things like that, no one said anything, so we think we're doing great. change your method and performance reviews. Right? You want to lead by example. You should demonstrate the behavior that you want your employees to adopt. Right? If you're always late, if you're disorganized, if you're negative, right, then this won't inspire your staff to be their best. Right? You want to get comfortable with conflict. You are going to engage and deal with conflict in your role, right? If you're going to be a good role model and lead by example, you are going to have to get comfortable with conflict to restore peace. You must understand that there is a difference between confronting a conflict and being directly engaging. And then finally, to all of our leaders and our supervisors and our managers and stuff, stop being busy, right? I know all of us get the same question every day when someone comes in. You know, are you busy? You know, our replies often, you know, yes, but, you know, I can stop, or what do you need? Your response should be no, I'm not busy, I'm doing things, right? So stop being busy and just start doing things, right? So hopefully you completed the leadership survey, because in that leadership survey, it helps you identify your leadership style. And we're going to talk a little bit about these leadership styles, the pros and cons of some of these and everything, and how, if you notice on this picture here, display, they overlap. So we're going to get a little bit into, we're going to talk a little bit about leadership styles as we get into the presentation. All right, so here's our second poll question, right? So how well do you delegate tasks to other employees? Okay, great. All right. So to the 9%, there are roughly 9% that says not at all. A word of advice, part of leadership, succession planning, getting that best group, team that you want in your organization, part of that in professional development is delegating. Effective delegation is an important part of leadership, right? So this question helps you to understand how well leaders utilize the strength of others to execute tasks. If you don't delegate, now understand, when you delegate, that doesn't mean that you're not responsible. You're not shifting your responsibility off on others.
The same. I'm just stuffed up.
Say that again. Okay. Am I missing something? All right. So, okay. So we have 21% that does it very well. Great. Kudos. 71% somewhat well. Okay. And that's good too, right? And then the 9%. And so roughly with the 9%, let's think about, again, when you're delegating, you're not shifting your responsibility off on others, right? What you're doing is you're preparing your staff, you're putting together succession planning. Remember, delegation does not remove your responsibility, but what it also does is help you identify those individuals that can step up to the next level, can take on additional responsibility. So we're going to talk a little bit, and as we go through this presentation, that's one of the words you're going to constantly hear over and over again about delegation, because I think it's very important and it is very essential to preparing that next level of leadership within your organizations. Let's get comfortable with that. There's nothing wrong with delegating, right? You're not relieving yourself of responsibility. What you're doing is you're preparing that individual for the next level. All right. So another thing we want to focus on is, as supervisors, first-time supervisors, there are 6 essential things that we need to do and we need to know, right? And so one of them is, like I said, You must be comfortable with delegating. Delegation is a crucial responsibility for supervisors. You are responsible for making sure tasks are completed, which means delegating jobs to employees, right? Don't be afraid to do this. Embrace it as an essential part of your role, right? And as a supervisor, right? Leader, right? It's hard work, right? It is very hard work. Anytime you have to supervise more than one person, it's hard, right? So, I mean, when you have to supervise your own self, sometimes it's get hard, right? You're conflicted, right? Do I do this or do I do that? Supervising individuals is hard, right? So when you take on a new job role, right, especially with increased responsibility, it is never going to be easy, right? Develop a positive mindset and view any challenge that develops as all part of your learning process. You're growing, right? Because of the role of leadership, it can be hard work. It's important that you make time for yourself, right? You want to relax and recuperate. Don't burn yourself out, right? This is not good for anyone, but it is very hard work, right? You must look after your people, right? As well as an increased workload, you also have a responsibility to look after your employees. You must ensure that they are happy and feel appreciated at work, and that they know they can come to you with any questions and concerns. Right? Now, this is really important, right? For first-time supervisors, right? In a supervisory position, it's very difficult to be everyone's friend. And you shouldn't waste all your time trying to do so. I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that, right? But if you need to discipline an employee, it's unlikely that they're going to be pleased. No one is pleased when they're disciplined in any kind of form, right? So of course, this doesn't mean that you should be able when you do it, right? You can be friendly, right, while remaining professional. But don't try to be everyone's friend and supervisor. It's impossible. Right? It's going to make a very difficult your job very difficult, right? Okay. If you don't have, you don't have to know everything, right? Nor should you be expected to. Don't put unnecessary extra pressure on yourself and assume that you need to have all the answers just because you are a supervisor, right? You're taking on a new job role. And of course, right, you're gonna learn some things as you go along, but you also want to tap into the knowledge of the individuals that you're supervising. They know a lot, right? So don't expect to know everything. You're going to learn it as you go, but it's a necessary burden that you and stress to put on yourself to think that you should have the answers to every question. Right.
How are you?
Stop. Okay. Stop looking for perfection and focus on progress. This is really, really important. There was a faculty member in the class that I took, and every time he would tell us, he called them foot stompers, right? These are things that you need to pay attention to and write them down because you're going to be tested on this, right? This is the one thing, if we were in person and you can see me out, this would be a foot stomper, right? No one is perfect, right? No one, right? So stop expecting perfection and focus on progress, right? So being perfect or trying to be perfect is exhausting. And at the end, nothing will be perfect, right? So please focus on progress and not perfection, right? Take care of yourself, right? Self-care is no longer a luxury, it's a must. Self-care is your relationship and connection to you. It's not just your physical health, which is important, right? You also need to pay attention to your care of mind, emotions, relationship, environment, time, and resources that directly impact you. Right? So in your role as a supervisor, first-time supervisor, you want to avoid that burnout, right? So this book right here is in my library of books on leadership and what you should and should not do. This is a really good book here, right? And so at the end of the slides, there is a list of suggested reading materials and links that you can go to that will give you. But I really like this book, right? And one of the things in the book is that it said why some teams pull together and others don't. And the author said, imagine a world where almost everyone wakes up inspired to go to work, right? Feel trusted and valued during the day. And then they return home feeling fulfilled. And he said, this is not a crazy idealized notion, right? Because he said, many successful organizations today great leaders create environment in which people naturally work together to do remarkable things. And he said, while too many workplaces are driven by cynicism, paranoia, and self-interest, he said, what we can do is look at leaders, right? And one of the most critical things that comes from leaders, one of the most important skills of leadership that, if you remember, is leaders eat last, right? So you look after your team first. You make sure that all the people that you supervise and lead are taken care of, that you have met the needs, that their needs, right, to the best of your ability, because a lot of us are from state institutions and we don't have much flexibility in those things that are really important to our leaders. But do what's within your circle of influence, what you do have control over. And at the end of the day, you eat last. Make sure that your employees are fulfilled and that their needs are met, and then you eat last, right? Okay, so one of the things that I listed in that first slide, right, it gave you 10 points. And as I stated earlier, I think these are very important lessons of leadership, right? And I'm going to use some acts from Hamilton, right, to illustrate some very important lessons about leadership that are more useful now than ever. The musical message, right, in a nutshell, is that everyone has a history, right, and a legacy that will define us after we are gone. So as a leader, what will your legacy be, right? Will people attend your retirement reception to wish you well and express how you made this very positive impact in their work life, in their personal life, right? That you were really, truly an individual that they basically respect, right? Because of your leadership role. Or are they going to show up really just to make sure you're actually leaving, right? So it's a difference, right? You know, do people show up for your retirement session because they really, truly love that individual that they work with, they appreciate, they respect that person? Or was this one of the most horrible individuals in the world, right? And I just want to make sure they really are leaving, right? So what you want to do with leaders is that one of the messages that came out of that in leadership is opportunity, maximize opportunity, right? So in a career, opportunity may present in unanticipated ways and at unforeseen times, right? Necessitating critical thinking on whether to pursue a particular opportunity, right? So there may be times in your career that you will have to recognize the potential benefit and accept the position despite it not being the first choice. So a lot of times we take on leadership roles, we accept positions with leadership responsibility in it, and then we get in there and realize that managing people is hard. You know, this is not what I signed up for, right? This is no way, you know, it looks so easy when Jennifer does it. It looks so easy when Gloria does it. It looks so easy when Stephanie does it. It's just not, right? So the decision to pursue a new opportunity or leadership role should not be taken lightly, right? Finding balance, and you need to identify mentors to provide you with guidance, right, is extremely important in career advancement, right? So maximize your opportunities, but choose those opportunities very wisely when you are thinking about or considering entering into a leadership role, right? So the next important lesson that came out of Hamilton is listening, right? So if you all remember, for those of you that are familiar with the play, have seen the play and everything, and for those you don't, I'm gonna try to give it to you in a nutshell here. So Alexander Hamilton was not the best listener early in his career. He was quick to express his opinion, often before hearing the other sides of discussion. How many of us know people like that, right? So academia is an environment that encourages individual exploration of research and clinical practice, while still requiring group collaboration and consensus on mission, vision, and value, right? It is not unusual for individuals with different roles within the institution to have difficulty understanding other points of view. So I want to make this point clear, right? Leaders who lack listening skills when discussing topics with their staff and colleagues could be perceived as unapproachable or lacking collegiality, right? Your decisions should be made only after hearing both sides of an issue. So you want to strive for an organization where listening and learning from others is welcome. Right. So this one, I really like this one, right? So before you make your decision, remember, and this is in every situation, whether it is in your professional life or if it's in your personal life, right? The first person to present his case seems right until another comes along and questions him. So it's very important. That's where the listening comes from, right? So we want to look at some of the things that effective, right? That will have you, please, I think this is more important, right? And especially now, right? With us working remote, because with most of us working remote, we do not know how to disconnect, right? We are at that computer from the time we get up to maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night and stuff like that. You have to avoid burnout, right? And so this was really great when we were basically in the office, but now it should say leave the home office at the home office, right? But effective leaders recognize that taking time off is as important as working, right? It refreshes the mind and it allows them to come back to their tasks with renewed enthusiasm, right? So leave work at work. Even if you're working remotely, leave it at work, right? Disconnect, right? Being available 24/7 is not good, right? It causes emotional stress, strain, and pressure, right? And then it leaves you no time to recharge, reset, and refocus. So, and I honestly believe that when you are working 24/7, you're just setting yourself up, in essence, really truly for, not only your career, but personal destruction, right? So leave it at the office, leave work at work and take some time off, right? Get a hobby. Seriously, I cannot emphasize this most, right? There is more to life than just working. You should be enjoying life, right? The research shows that spending time on a hobby can improve mental and physical well-being. So enjoyable activities also can increase happiness, relaxation, replenish your energy in here, right? And if a long vacation, which is probably by now, is impossible, there are much simpler ways to prevent burnout, right? Set aside time for a hobby. So I'll share some with you guys. So when we were doing the lockdown and everything, over the pandemic and everything, stuff shut down. So I could disconnect from the computer and not work 24/7 or at least 10, 11 hours a day. I started teaching myself how to play the piano, right? And I tell you, I sucked. I still suck, really and truly. But it was really relaxing to me to just sit there and try to teach myself how to play the piano and everything. And so it's a hobby, it's one of many hobbies that I have, but it was just, I was going to try something different during the pandemic and the lockdown. And that helped me basically to avoid burnout, right? Working, because you can burn out working remote. Believe it or not, and I know a lot of us can really attest to that. You can burn out working remote. So get a hobby, learn there's much more to life than just working, all right? Know where to draw the line. In particular for this is especially important for first-time supervisors. Commitment is a part of life, right? However, there is a difference between commitment and overcommitted. You're trying to live up to people's expectations of what they think you should do or what they think you should be, right? Or keep up a superhuman reputation, can have serious negative consequences. The bottom line is human beings have limits, and managing those limits is critical, right? So know when to say no, right? Set boundaries that will help, you and help you in preventing burnout, right? Okay, we talked about this again, about the trying to be perfect as opposed to looking for progress, right? Study shows that there is a direct correlation between perfectionism and high rates of burnout, right? Caused by high level of stress. Stop worrying about the small imperfections, right? Just do the best job you can do and move on, right? This attitude actually allows for consistent improvement, job satisfaction, and reduce the risk of burnout, right? Delegate. Like, as I told you, you're going to constantly hear this over and over again. Delegate, right? By delegating work effectively, you are preventing stress and burnout. And the added bonus is you are enhancing your team's capability. So for all of those that feel like they have to touch everything, stop micromanaging. Ditch the micromanage mindset, right? Because if you could do it all by yourself, then you would need a team, right? So delegate. Okay, so the third lesson in my leadership from Hamilton, excuse me, is prioritizing. So let's take a look at this video.
It's good to see your face. Angelica, tell this man John Adams spends the summer with his family.
Angelica, tell my wife John Adams doesn't have a real job anyway.
You're not joining us, wait.
I'm afraid I cannot join you upstate.
Alexander, I came all this way. All this way, take a break.
You know I have to get my plan to Congress.
Run away with us for the summer, let's go upstate.
I lose my job if you don't get this plan to
And
Congress.
all go stay with our fathers. I know it's your place. Sticking place. Right, take a break and get away. For the summer, let's go upstate where we can stay. With us. If you take tomorrow, you'll make your tomorrow. Rise and dream when the night gets dark. Take a break.
I have to get my plan through Congress. I can't stop till I get this plan through Congress.
So one of the things that we talked about earlier, right, is prioritizing, right, and not working yourself to death, right. So prioritizing is important, right. So a common struggle for many of us in this room, really and truly, is how and when to say no without incurring consequences. It is important to identify, right, those opportunities that best align with personal and professional growth. And so in that video right there, one of the things that Hamilton was, it was a workaholic. He really truly was, to the tune that it damaged, you know, his relationship with his family and other friends and stuff. So being willing to say no at the right time can help to ensure professional and personal success, right? So show of hands. So how many people do you know on their dying bed who wish was they worked more hours? No one, right? Prioritize, make time for your family, make time for yourself, right? Again, we talked about, one of the things that I talked about with Hamilton and in my presentation earlier is empathy, right? Demonstrating empathy is an important skill for leaders to acquire and develop. An empathetic leader is more approachable by those who may be struggling with personal issues, right? From marital problems to a serious illness, which can affect a person's performance, right? Professional performance. So you want to start difficult conversations when you see someone is struggling or you see someone is off course, right? This is not this typical person's work behavior, right? You know, I'm concerned about you. Are you doing okay? Right? This may serve as an opening for a supportive discussion, right? So all of us already know that demonstrating empathy is positive for people. But research also just shows that it's important for everything from innovation to retention. So great leaders require a fine mix of all kinds of skills to create the condition for engagement, happiness, and performance. And empathy tops the list of what leaders should get right. All right, so here's our third poll question, right? So I believe that blank is an essential leadership skill set. Okay, I think we're pretty good here. Oh, hey, great, right. So 15% says soft skills, 0% says technical skills, interesting. And then 85% of you guys said both. All right, so Great. Okay. So in a Wall Street Journal survey of over 900 executives, 92% reported soft skills, including communication, curiosity, and critical thinking, are as important as technical skills. However, 89% of those same executives report that they have a very difficult or somewhat difficult time hiring individuals with soft skills. Interesting, right? So let's take a look at these skills, right? So technical skills, right, include tools, and I'm gonna stop my video here. Okay, technical skills include tools and machines on which you work and get proficient after a certain time. Soft skills, on the other hand, are the interpersonal skills or people skills that can be used in any and every job, right? This includes communication, teamwork, and adaptability. Technical skills and soft skills are pretty different from one another, but both are necessary to be successful in a job, right? Basically, your technical skills are concrete skills that are specific to our job, right? And are required for us to actually do our work with more accuracy and precisely, right? Like if you are a chef, then cooking would be an example. So technical skills include tools and machines on which you work and get proficient after a certain time. Soft skills are also called transferable skills because you can transfer them from one job to another. Soft skills are more difficult to develop. You would need to practice them over time in the real world with others. And one of the things that we do as senior leadership is that we normally promote people in these entry-level positions, and we don't help develop their soft skills, right? So skills such as listening, collaborating with others, presenting ideas, communicating with team members are all highly valuable in every workplace. Strong soft skills ensure a productive, collaborative, and healthy environment. So to drive this one right, we hire people because of their hard skills. We promote people because of their hard skills. However, right, and so this is another foot stumper, right? Think about this, right? We fire people because of their soft skills, right? This is when they cannot resolve conflict, they don't work as a team, they're not good listeners. All of these are reasons why we let people go. So soft skills are just as important, if not more important, as a leader than your hard skills. So when we, as senior managers, senior leadership, make a decision to promote someone, look at their soft skills. And even though this individual may be a jack of all trades and the hard skill, they know all the regulations, they can cite, they can tell you who to contact at what agency, they can tell you what's required, what is a compliant proposal, they can tell you what's allowable. I mean, right off the top of their head without looking at where you can go into uniform guidance to find that regulation. That is great. But can they communicate? Can they work with people, right? Do they know how to engage people? There's training for that, right? And if you got this really individual that you know will make a great leader, look at their soft skills. Do they need help? So a study by Leadership IQ found that 46% of new hires are either fired or disciplined within their first 18 months. And in a staggering 89% of those cases, the reason for action isn't incompetence. Great hard skills, it's their attitude, poor motivation, bad temperament, or emotional issues. Soft skills are very, very important in leadership, in any job, in your organization. It helps. How do your people come together? How do they collaborate? How do they work as a team? Right. Lesson number 5 is self-reflection and compromise, right? So one of the things in Hamilton, he had to compromise. He had to compromise with his enemy, right? Well, frenemy, and actually, Jefferson was his enemy, right? But he had to compromise in order to get something that he wanted. So we all need self-awareness and humility in order to be successful in our careers, right? So Hamilton viewed himself as a rising star, and he was arrogant in his interaction with others. But over time, Hamilton acknowledged that these deficiencies, he acknowledged the deficiencies and he worked to overcome them, right? So leaders will face situations that necessitate compromise and negotiation. Compromise requires careful listening, self-reflection, and possibly conceding, value position in order to achieve the common ground. So when you, as a leader, right, you need to ditch the my way or the highway mindset, because it's not a component of leadership, nor is it a component of compromise. My lesson number 6 from Hamilton is patience, right? And so basically in Hamilton, he was a flawed character. So in many ways, especially because of his impulsiveness and inability to consider the repercussion of his actions, right? So working nonstop led to professional advantages for Hamilton, right? But it created difficulty in his life. And for those of you that have seen the play and familiar with the play, right, many of us did not like Burr, right? Because Aaron Burr was wishy-washy. He really, truly was wishy-washy, right? You didn't know what side he stood on. He straddled the fence. But he also described himself as someone willing to wait for the perfect time and opportunity. And so as a leader, right, goals should be carefully reflected upon in regard to your career planning and timing. So being willing to wait for it will help ensure professional and personal success by pursuing the right career opportunities. So sometimes patience is really of a virtue, right? So another book that I read about leadership is called The Last Lecture. And I'm many of you probably are familiar with this one. So Dr. Poch is a professor. He was a professor at Carnegie Mellon, and he published the book in April of 2018. So Dr. Poch basically put together, he wanted his children to get an idea of who he was. They were very young. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He later died, right? But in his book, he discusses everything that he wants his children to know about pancreatic, to know after pancreatic cancer takes its life. But it's also a great book on leadership and mentoring. The Last Lecture is about the importance of overcoming obstacles, enabling the dream of others, and seizing every moment. Because, quote, according to Dr. Poch, time is all you have. And you may find one day that you have less than you think, in the quote, right? So in his book, The Last Lecture, he identified Captain Kirk that with the strongest skill set that he called leadership. And so for those of us that are not familiar with the original series, right, with Captain Kirk, right, the James Kirk was the commanding officer of the USS Enterprise. So Posh writes in his book that Kirk was a dynamic manager. He knew how to delegate. He had the passion to inspire. And most important, as far as Dr. Posh was concerned, he really looked good in what he wore to work every day, right? So, but one of the things that if you're familiar with, excuse me, if you're familiar with Star Trek is Captain Kirk never professed to have skills greater than his subordinates. He acknowledged that they knew what they were doing in their domain. He established his vision, the tone, right? And he was in charge of morale. So what Dr. Posh said is that we can all learn something from Kirk, right? In leadership, with our leadership role. We need to keep exploring and learning. We need to ensure that we encourage creativity and innovation by listening to the advice of our people with vastly different opinions. We need to occasionally get down in the trenches with members of our team so we understand their needs and earn their trust and loyalty. And finally, we need to learn to rapidly change course when circumstances dictate. Okay. Right. So my leadership lesson 7 is tending relationships, right? This is important as leaders, very important as leaders.
They say George Washington's yielding his power and stepping away. Is that true? I wasn't aware that was something a person could do. I'm perplexed. perplexed. Are they going to keep on replacing whoever's in charge? If so, who's next? There's nobody else in their country who looms quite as large. What? John Adams? I know him. That can't be. That's that little guy who spoke to me all those years ago. What was it, 85? That poor man, they're going to eat him alive. Oceans rise, empires fall. Next to Washington, they all look small. All alone, watch them run. They will tear each other into pieces. Jesus Christ, it will be fun. Da 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 da. Da 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 ya da 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 ya da.
So the I Know Him network can be a powerful incentive or disincentive when someone is being considered for a job, especially a leadership role. So sometimes a new position does not work out. That being said, it is important to tend to all relationships throughout the trajectory of your career, as this connection may influence the next position. So in a nutshell, don't burn bridges, right? Difficult decisions, we all have to make them in leadership positions, all of us, whether we're in a leadership role or not, we all have to make difficult positions. So difficult and unpopular decisions are commonly a part of a leadership role. You will have to make many difficult decisions as a leader, right? So find someone that you can talk to, strategize on this decision that you have to make. But in the end, you make a decision and you stand by that decision. So we're gonna run through this right quick because I'm looking at my time and stuff, and I know I want to go over the survey right quick. Sorry, so transformational leadership is how a leader transforms a team or organization by creating communication and modeling a vision for the organization. So transformational leadership is important, right? And there are several factors to transformational leadership, right? Your individual mentoring. So you need to be able to mentor, right? You want to mentor your employees. You want to encourage creativity. You want to inspire motivation, and you want to influence by leading. That's all part of transformational leadership. It is often said that leaders should always lead by example. Employees will follow your lead. So it's up to you to decide what kind of example you want to set. The lesson number 9 is don't make everything about you. It's not about you, right? And you may ask why. The answer is because your people matter, your organization matter, and your family matter. So make sure you're not taking care of only you. Take care of those around you, right? The other thing is please don't have your employees guessing, right? Say what you mean and then mean what you say, right? These are huge issues with any leader, right? You give solid answers. These are, when people walk out of your office and still don't know what it is that you just told them, right? You need to be clear, right? So you need to be bold, you need to be outspoken about what you believe in, and most importantly, share the truth, right? Say what you mean and then mean what you say, right? So frustration for us is a glass half full situation, right? And remember, you're only frustrated because you're working so hard towards a goal that's important to you, right? Learn to manage your frustration, right? Put yourself in timeout, right? Pause and consider how best to respond. Look for the positive, and I know sometimes it's hard. Find an objective source and share your frustration. But at the end of the day, regardless of all of this, remember you are in control, right? So this is our final poll question, and this goes with your leadership style. And when I finish this presentation, I'm going to also send a handout that you can download that goes more into these type of leadership styles and identify the pros and cons of them. Okay, slowing down a little bit, and then in the need of time and everything, let's end the poll. All right, so we got 14% are scored 12 to 20, 72%, 21 to 27, and then 14%, 28 to 36. Okay, great. We're gonna end the poll. All right, so let's look at this right quick. All right. So if you basically if you score 12 to 20, between 12 and 20, you have an authoritarian, autocratic leadership style, right? So what this is that being too autocratic can also mean that you'll find it hard to stand back from the details and take a wider, more strategic view. So your leadership style is basically more of your hands-on, your hard skills, and less of your soft skills. If you scored, with 12 to 20, right? If you scored between 21 and 27, you are more of a democratic, participant leader style, right? You set goals, you guide your team discussions, and you make the final decision. But you also acknowledge that your people can have valuable insight into a problem or process, right? But be aware that this type of leadership style can slow the process down. If time is of the essence, then you may want to briefly adopt a more autocratic leadership style. And then finally, if you score between 28 and 36, you have a more delegated, laissez-faire leadership style. You empower your team to make decisions with little to no guidance. So the danger to this approach is that situations become chaotic. And if your people have low motivation or poor skills, right? So remember, however, that as a leader, you will still be held accountable for the outcome. So this type of leadership has a high expectation for and set fine examples to their people, but you got to prepare them if this is your leadership style. Right? So here's another book I read, and this is things that should be in every one of our inventory as leaders, right? We need to basically look at that. We need to appreciate diversity. We need to embrace the values of diverse people, right? We need to create a shared vision, right? We need to create a shared vision. We need to encourage constructive dialogue, right? That is very important. We want to encourage constructive dialogue. And I think one of the other things is we need to ensure stakeholders are satisfied. You want to inspire your people to achieve high level of customer satisfaction, right? Look at your processes and your procedures to ensure that you have your customers, your stakeholder satisfaction. And this is a really great book. What got you here won't get you there. If when you're looking at leadership, what should be in your inventory, right? The other thing is, I really love this book right here because this book talks about the working remote, right? The long distance teammate, right? And as remote employment becomes the new norm, so too our remote leadership fails, right? And while leaders adapt to the times, there are pitfalls to avoid in order to help your virtual team succeed. So in this book, I pointed out some of the things that I really think are critical takeaways from the long distance teamwork. And the first most important one, I think, is believing that remote work reduces performance. It does not, right? And then failure to evaluate performance, right? So this is another good read for leaders, whether you are new to it or whether you're a veteran, right? That's a really good read. So some of the takeaways I would like to give, if you forget most of everything we talked about here, I hope you walk away with the following: that leading is not easy. It never will be when two or more people are involved. Take care of yourself first, right? And that's what I mean. Take care of yourself first. You cannot take care of your staff if you are exhausted and stressed out, right? Work smarter, not harder. Stop being busy and get things done. And please, after this session, throw away that to-do list, right? Create a new list. Got it done, right? That's the greatest list, right? Never leave room for doubt. Be open and honest at all times. The truth is painful. However, in your staff will appreciate you for being truthful and transparent, right? Build the staff you want. Build the staff you need. Delegate, delegate, and delegate. Let your people do their job. Train them to be that next leader of the organization. Right? Stop beating yourself up. Stop second guessing your every action and move out of your way. If you miss the mark, try again. You know, again, one of the things my dad used to say is that, hey, why do you think there are erasers on pencils? This is from my dad now, right? Or in our case, the delete key, right? Because you're going to make mistakes. Erase it, delete it, move on, right? And then the other thing that I would really like to leave you, please, no matter how right you are, no matter how right you were, never, ever say duh, please. And finally, this is most important. I cannot emphasize this anymore. That's important right there. Because these people will cause an enormous amount of stress. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gloria. The chat is just full of kudos coming in for this absolutely marvelous presentation, and what a great way to kick off the conference.
Thank you.
Really do appreciate all the effort that you've put into this, the great book recommendations so that we can continue to learn to be great leaders. And there was really only one question that came in. How do you deal with guilt when you know everyone's busy when it comes time to delegate?
File it away.
file away the guilt.
Yeah, file it away. I mean, it's part of leadership, right?
Right.
We're all busy, right? What you want to do is that you want to also recognize, understand what that individual can handle, right? So I'm never guilty about delegating. I'm really not. But I also recognize the workload of individuals. So I won't just keep piling on. But again, I think delegation is really a good way to build that team that you want. But you're also preparing for succession training. You really, truly are. You are. And so I think, there should not be any guilt in when you delegate.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying there. And I think that also ties back to what something you said in the beginning of the session, is to not just do an annual review, but touch base all throughout the year, so that if someone seems to be overwhelmed, they need to have a clear job description, and everyone needs to understand what their role and their responsibility is. And we can look at those kinds of things to help folks if they need additional support.
Exactly right, because you and I know, and I think everybody that's in the session understands that the last thing, is if when you sit down for your annual performance review, they're looking at, the individuals that have to do the performance review are making notes, right? But if they're not providing you with feedback when you sit down for that annual performance review and they start pointing out something that you did a year ago, first of all, you got to recall, well, did I do that? And then the second thing is so, well, why didn't you bring that to my attention then? Because if you don't tell me that I have deficiencies in these areas, then as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing my job.
Correct.
And so you making notes of it to bring it up to my attention, a year from now, it doesn't help. But it doesn't help with you building that your morale, right? With you strengthening that individual's professional. That's part of professional development. You giving them feedback, and constructive feedback can be very positive when done in the right way.
Right. And remind them of the things they've done right as much as you remind them of the things that may need improvement.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess our time is up. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We're good. We're fine.
But
I enjoy this too.
Gloria will be back. She's going to be doing a session again during our concurrent sessions today from 11:45 to 12:45. So if you need another little dose of Gloria, she's coming back. And there are going to be 4 other sessions that are great too to choose from. But thank you so much, Gloria. I cannot express enough how much I appreciate. I know you're the busiest person I know. So,
and thank you. I really enjoyed this, and thank you everyone that took the time to attend my presentation. I really appreciate it. And thanks, Jennifer. Love you.
Love you too.
All right.
Bye.